Hello and welcome to The Signal on CBC Radio. It is Friday, October 11th. I'm Bernice Hillier, filling in for Adam Walsh. Today on The Signal, we're talking about gratitude. No, this is not where you're going to be forced to say something you're thankful for before you can eat your turkey dinner. On The Signal today, we are talking about practicing gratitude daily. What does it mean to practice gratitude? How has it helped you in your life? And what does gratitude actually do to help your brain? Well, if you practice gratitude or if you have thoughts about this topic, you can call in to our show. The number is 1-800-563-8255. The number, if you want to send us a text during the signal today, is 709-327-8206. I know many of you use that on a daily basis. Or you can send us an email at thesignal@cbc.ca. Now, we have two guests on The Signal today to help guide us through our practice of gratitude for the next hour. In our St. John studio, we are joined by Dr. Jody Spiegel. Dr. Jody Spiegel is a registered psychologist who works at NL Health Services in outpatient mental health services, and she operates a small private practice. She is passionate about advocacy and helping people live their most authentic lives. Hello, Dr. Spiegel. Welcome to The Signal.
Hello, Bernice. Thank you so much for having me today.
And joining us from Labrador City today, we have Becca Mills. Becca Mills is a mindfulness-based stress reduction facilitator. She recently did a series of sessions with clients focused on body gratitude. And we're going to find out more about that as the show goes on today. Becca Mills is on the line from Labrador City. Hello, Becca.
Hey there. It's such an honor to be with you all today.
Well, I'm grateful to both of you that you've taken some time on a Friday to speak with us, to be with us on the program. So I guess the first question for each of you is, how do you define gratitude? Dr. Spiegel?
So I think gratitude is a practice of noticing aspects of our experience that are more positive within the context of our entire experience.
Okay, and we're going to delve into that more. Becca, what about for you? How do you define gratitude? What does it mean to you?
Of course, at the basis, it's very similar there. I do like to take in the full experience of what's happening in the present moment and acknowledging positive feelings or negative as well, and then following up with a little bit of gratitude to show what I'm really grateful for and remind my mind of that.
Becca, how did you get into practicing gratitude?
So while my mindfulness practice didn't come until later, I did start a practice of gratitude very much in the moment. I had a car accident at age 17, and it was a bit dramatic. I went through the window and the car landed on top of me, and it was quite the ordeal. And I remember laying there, very squat, very squished, and thinking to myself, wow, I'm grateful that those sirens are coming. I'm grateful I'm still breathing. I'm grateful I'm still here, and just going from then on, everything became this extra positive light to say things could have been different, but look how it is for real, and taking it moment by moment that way.
And that was about, 13 years ago, right, Becca?
Yes, I'm 30 now.
And Dr. Spiegel, what about for you? You have quite the story as well. We're going to get into that as the show goes on as well. But how did you get started with practicing gratitude? What are your first memories of that?
So growing up, had a wonderful relationship with my grandmother who lived kind of far away, so mostly on the phone, and would call her after something had happened that I didn't like, oftentimes with my dad. And she would, of course, validate my experience and then take me through aspects, that I feel grateful for. I think gratuity is really a core value of mine. And so that's when I would say I was really first introduced to it. But I didn't know that she was encouraging a gratitude practice. And in around 2009, I was involved in revamping a depression group that we were offering to our outpatient adult population. And we wanted to incorporate some of the newer theories that had emerged. And positive psychology was in its infancy, really, at that point, in terms of being able to talk about, like at that time, they called it the science of happiness, which now they call it the science of optimal human functioning. And in that learning, I really came to understand more about the importance of gratitude and making that an intentional practice. Through that work, I was introduced to what I think to still be a fantastic video you can find on YouTube, which is called Happiness 101. And the central message that resonated me at that time is that the word appreciation has a dual meaning. And it could be an increase in value, and it can also be a focus on what we value, and the idea that what we appreciate appreciates when we engage in it.
I love that. So what we appreciate, what we show appreciation for actually grows, I guess, is the sense of that quote.
Yes, exactly.
Becca, I want to come back to the fact that you had that accident at a very young age. And I know, I talk to lots of people all the time who go through very challenging scenarios, situations, events in their lives. And I'm often told that they had a choice. They could choose the negative or choose the positive. And I'm just wondering at 17 why you didn't choose to feel sorry for yourself, but instead chose to focus on what was positive.
I can't say for certain, except that it did come to mind that I had to survive it. I do actually have a longer history of chronic pain than that. I've been in chronic pain since I was 10. And at that point, it was really bad that day and for those hours and the month later. But in that moment, it was just, if I'm going to get through this, I have to stay calm. And I have to be thankful. I have to look towards the helpers. And you'll always see that. Whatever is going on around you, there always are people that pick up and help, regardless of the terrible things that do happen on our planet. And it definitely got me through, the acknowledgement that there was a nurse on the scene, the acknowledgement that the firefighters were experts in this, and the acknowledgement that I landed in the right place at the right time. And even though I was so crushed, I had this feeling that I just had it within me to keep going, and I had to focus on that.
Now, both of you are really big believers in the practice of gratitude. But before we get into this topic any further, I want to ask each of you to dispel perhaps some of the misconceptions around gratitude. Dr. Spiegel, are you asking people to be happy all the time?
No, and thank you so much, Bernice, for clarifying. I think we have this idea of, this sort of toxic positivity that, exactly as you said, you can choose to be happy within a situation. And that is not what gratitude practice is about. It is not to invalidate or ignore aspects of life that are difficult and painful. What it is meant to do and intended to do is to allow us to have more perspective and balance for the entirety of our experience. I often share with people that our nervous systems are really primed to attune to the threats in our environment. So the things that we tend to think about as negative or potentially harmful. And we also don't do a great job internally. Our nervous systems don't do a great job distinguishing between actual and perceived threats. And so throughout the day, our bodies, our minds are constantly really sending us those signals of this is dangerous, this is bad, this is negative. And a gratitude practice allows us to intentionally turn our minds to noticing some of the positive aspects within. And I often say to people, this is not an either or prospect, this is an and prospect that allows us to really embrace the duality of life.
Becca, how do you explain that in your practice? That gratitude doesn't mean you're walking around with a smile pasted on your face all the time.
Right. Well, while we're not able to be happy all the time, and certainly our brains do chime in more often when we perceive something negative, It absolutely is possible to take it as the moment that it is, as whole as it is, exactly as we are. And for me, that's where the practice of meditation and mindfulness come in, whether it's formal on the mat or in your daily life. I often tell my clients that, our brain has a way of only noticing the super positive or only noticing that negative threat that Dr. Spiegel is mentioning. And we have this ability to also take in the mundane and simply be present for it and notice, our senses, our sense of sight, our sense of smell, our sense of taste. And, if you're able to walk, if you're able to hear, all of that, showing gratitude when that flicker of attention comes, and absolutely taking in the negative too, and saying at times, if things are very negative, you can say, I'm as grateful as possible, right? And that just softens it a little bit. And rather than saying, I'm just going to be happy, you can say, even though things are difficult right now, I can be grateful for ...
Dr. Spiegel, you have quite a story as a cancer survivor and as a widow. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you somehow still managed to find a way to practice gratitude?
Absolutely. So my husband was diagnosed with head and neck cancer in 2015 and had a really, really intense surgery, recovered for about a week in ICU, and then moved into the special care unit where there's 3 patients to 1 nurse. And I was sat beside his bed, and, there was a window to the left of me that overlooked the parking garage, so not the best view. And he was so unwell and sleeping a lot of the time. I was holding his hand and, listening to something on my phone. And I, at the time, was using an app that provided mindfulness prompts throughout the day. And in this moment where I was just feeling so overwhelmed and, defeated, it prompted me to notice the beauty in this moment. And my initial reaction, honestly, was to laugh and to say, there is nothing beautiful about this moment. I was very committed to the practice. And so I really intentionally said, okay, there has to be something beautiful. What is beautiful? And the first thing I noticed was I was holding my husband's hand, and he was very much alive at that time. And we had a beautiful love story. And that was absolutely something I felt grateful for. I also looked out the window again, and it had started to snow. And I thought, we have a window. We can see outside, and it's snowing, which is beautiful. I also looked over at a nurse helping one of the patients, and she was so tender and gentle in the way she was responding to this person who was in so much pain. And I thought that is just so beautiful, the way that she's so caring and gentle. So I really embraced at that time that, there was very much about my life that was terrible at that time. Since my husband died, I would say the main way that I've held gratitude is in that duality of grief. And, you frequently hear people say, I wouldn't trade what I had with this person, but... And what I say is, I wouldn't trade what I had with my husband, and I wish he didn't die. So, that and to me is so critical. In my own cancer experience, again, very much the same kind of duality of, I absolutely wish I did not have an experience of cancer, and I am so grateful to be alive. I am so grateful to have the health that I do at this stage. I do believe I appreciate the way my body moves and what it does for me in ways that I wouldn't have had I not gone through that cancer experience, which is in no way saying I am grateful that I had cancer.
Dr. Spiegel, thank you so much for sharing that. I think many people can relate to what you've shared there. Many of us have either gone through a critical illness ourselves or witnessed a loved one going through a scenario like that and just maybe trying to find something good in it all. So thank you very much, Dr. Spiegel, for sharing such a very personal story with all of us today.
Thank you.
You are listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1. We are talking about gratitude. And if you have some thoughts on gratitude, you can get in touch with us. You can text us or email us or call. Our email address is thesignal@cbc.ca. You can text the show 709-327-8206. The numbers to call are 772-7111 in the St. John's area. Anywhere in the province, of course, you can call 1-800-563-8255. Our guests today are psychologist Dr. Jody Spiegel in our St. John's studio and mindfulness practitioner Becca Wells in Labrador City. Maybe you have a question for them on how you can get started practicing gratitude in your life. Well, today on the show, we are talking about gratitude, and Faye Prince is an artist in Princeton, Bonavista Bay, who has been practicing gratitude for a number of years, and she joins us on the line now. Good afternoon to you, Faye.
Good afternoon, Bernice. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day, beautiful sunshiny day, and I got to see the spectacular aurora borealis last night. It was like I've never seen before in my entire life.
Oh, wow. I imagine that is something you are grateful for at the moment. I did not see that last night, Faye.
You'll have to go into my latest post on Facebook and see the photos. They're just amazing. Yes, and I'm very grateful.
Faye, I have to say, your social media feed caught my eye because you always seem to express gratitude for various things that are happening or not happening in your life. How did you get into practicing gratitude?
Well, it was a very long time ago. I'll say back in 2000, so 24 years ago. I bought this little book, and it was called Developing an Attitude of Gratitude. And it was like a little coffee table book, but it had all these sayings about gratitude and appreciation in it. And I think I must have read that over and over and over, like so many times, and it always resonated with me. And one of the things that it suggested in the book was to start a gratitude journal. So I started that like a long, long time ago. I was journaling that for a long time. Like at the end of the day, before I'd go to bed, I would take out my little journal and write down all the things that I was grateful for that happened that day, or things that I wanted to maybe manifest to happen, and developed, that kind of a practice. And it took a while to make it a habit, and then after a while, something else happened. I gave up the journaling, and it actually sort of feels like it became a way of life, whereas I'm more able to just be in the present moment and appreciate without having to, write it down or whatever.
And how do you think that has helped you, Faye?
I think it changed my life in lots of ways because things happen in our lives that are not necessarily wonderful or good, but sometimes we can't see, the full picture, or we're too close to the situation, or whatever the case might be. And it gets revealed to you maybe later in time, that there's something good. There's always something good about it. And that's what it did for me. It helped me to try to see the good in everything. And just like your last guest was talking about, she wasn't grateful for the cancer, but she was grateful for other things that came from that. And it's the same with my life. I've had a lot of things happen in my life. I lost my husband in 2007 to an accident. But the things that came from that, he was French, and I got to learn French. I'm bilingual right now. I have a French family in Quebec that I love and adore, and there's just so many things that happened after that event. But I think the way that the journaling works is that you need to make it a practice. It doesn't happen right away. It takes a while to create a habit. And then it becomes, like a way of life. But it definitely helped me to see the good, among all the things that are happening, like in the world today, Like last night when I went out here and I was able to see those beautiful northern lights, the red, the green. It was just amazing. It just touched my heart. Yeah.
Faye, thank you so much for taking some time to share a little bit of your story today on The Signal.
You're very welcome. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You as well. That's Faye Prince. She's an artist in Princeton, Bonavista Vista Bay, who's been practicing gratitude for a number of years now. Becca Mills in Labrador City, any thoughts on what we've just heard from Faye?
Absolutely. There's things that we can take in as positives in the greater scheme of things. There are very profound things that happen to us. There's only one way to get through it, and that is directly through it, experiencing it as fully as it is, and then showing a piece of gratitude for what we do find within that. I'm a huge believer in that, and absolutely this idea of a practice. I've never been much for journaling. My life has been very chaotic at times, and I find it difficult to read the negative, and I have been told that journaling the positive is quite beneficial, but still no pen to paper for me very often. But yet I do notice it within my mind. And over these years, I really feel that my brain has been rewired, and it comes second nature at this point. Back to what we said about having a choice, there is that acknowledgement. Like, for instance, you could say, wow, that elbow, really, really painful. My experience right now, it's hard, it's difficult. This injury, I wish I didn't have it. Although I am grateful for the rest of my body working in full order, right? Like we don't have to be grateful necessarily for the elbow injury, but at the same time, expanding our awareness to allow the full experience. And, if that comes with the northern lights and our hot cup of coffee and our daily sitting practice that alleviates some stress and allows us to feel a little bit more positive, a little bit more pleasantry in our life, I'm all about it. Not necessarily denying the negatives in life, but certainly embracing the full human experience.
Dr. Jody Spiegel is in our St. John's studio today. Mindfulness practitioner Becca Wells is in Labrador City. Dr. Spiegel, I feel like this is a great opportunity now for us to talk about what evidence there might be that being grateful can actually make a difference in our lives.
Absolutely. I absolutely loved what Faye said about the transition from intentionally daily doing a journaling practice that ultimately translated into her being able to more naturally notice those aspects of her experience for which she felt gratitude. And that is what the research demonstrates. And there's actually, I was quite surprised when you asked me about the evidence in the literature. And I had come to positive psychology when it was so much in its infancy stage that I didn't realize there is an abundance of research that has been conducted. And one of the studies in 2016 demonstrated that when you engage in a regular practice of gratitude, in this case, it was a letter writing practice, it has lasting impacts on your brain. And so it kind of rewires us to be more neurally sensitive to gratitude. There's also research that demonstrates that gratitude has a positive impact on our mind and that it stimulates areas of our brain that control positive emotions, social interactions. It impacts the physiology of our heart, decreases depressive symptoms. It's just really associated with greater physical and psychological health. I also really love that the impacts that are correlated with gratitude were really lighting up on functional MRI imaging regions of the brain that are distinct from other experiences like empathy. And so we're really rewiring our brain and priming it to function more kind of the way we would would hope it would in noticing some of those more positive aspects of our experience.
Dr. Spiegel, that's incredibly powerful. Really incredibly powerful. It's kind of one of those mind-blowing moments when you hear someone like yourself, a clinician, a registered psychologist, talk about the scientific evidence that gratitude can actually make a difference to our brains. I'm wondering, do you ever prescribe gratitude to a patient or client?
I do. Yeah. So I tend to work with people who are experiencing a lot of distress in their lives, and their reality does not match what they had expected it to look like at this stage in their lives. And what I've found is that in prescribing specific gratitude exercises, which I'm happy to go through at some point today, it does improve exactly what Becca was saying of that perspective, being able to notice our sphere of influence, noticing what we do have in our lives instead of only focusing on what we don't, and also really noticing what matters so that we can pursue our values more. And at the very least, it's a break from our pain, even if it's momentary.
You are listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1. Today we are talking about gratitude. And so if you have some thoughts, you can get in touch with us. We have guests in the studio, psychologist Dr. Jody Spiegel in our St. John's studio. We also have mindfulness practitioner Becca Wells on the line from Labrador City. So maybe you have a question for them on how to practice gratitude in your life. We're going to get to some of their tips on how to begin with that practice. The number to call if you would like to get in touch, 1-800-563-8255. Danielle Vaders is a health and wellness coach in Corner Brook who says she's done so much gratitude journaling, she could write a book about them. Danielle joins us on the line now. Good afternoon to you, Danielle.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm amazing. Thank you so much for asking.
Danielle, how did you get into practicing gratitude?
Well, it started about back when COVID had happened. So my mom had passed away, and I had 3 small children. COVID had happened. We were all locked in our houses, and I found myself in a really dark place where I hated absolutely everything about my life. And as I was spiraling, I realized I had to do something. And gratitude journaling was suggested to me, and it seemed really silly at the time. What is that going to do? Well, I quickly realized what you write, you invite, and it started changing a lot for me just by changing my perspective on the little things. When I would wake up in the morning, I'd feel really angry and frustrated, but then I would write down, I'm grateful for waking up this morning. I'm grateful that I have children. I'm grateful for the roof over my head. There were times I had to dig so deep, and the things that I would write seemed so small and minuscule, but they were so important because over time, it just became practice. I could look at any situation and always see the positive side of things, almost annoying to people where they'd say, gosh, you're just so positive. Stop. This is a bad situation. And it just became a great practice for me that changed my life.
And how do you think it has helped you? I mean, obviously, you say it's just become the way it is now, even if there's a day that you don't write in a gratitude journal.
It's just become one of those things where you attract what you put out. Your energy will attract its energy. You find your tribe. So I found myself, since journaling, writing all the things that I was grateful for. It put me in such a positive mindset that I started attracting greatness. I started growing as a person. My brain, like we had just heard, rewired itself. Sometimes we think we're stuck and who we are is who we are and will always be that way. That's not true. Our brain is a muscle and it's important, right? And it will do anything that we want it to do. If we work that muscle, we can change it. So changing that just helped me attract different things in my life that are just so great. I'm just overall happy and thankful and blessed.
Danielle, you were telling me something when you and I chatted a few days ago, and I had to chuckle. You said that as a health and wellness coach, you do recommend gratitude journaling to some of your clients. And one of the comments you get is, well, what if someone finds my journal?
Yeah.
And I loved your answer to that.
Yeah. Well, and if you're writing good things, like people will love, you won't be worried, right? Because they're just going to see all the good things that we write. Sometimes we journal and we think, well, I'm just writing down all this bad stuff. Well, stop writing all the bad stuff. Start writing all the good things, and you'll just start attracting more great things. And then you don't have to worry so much about anybody finding it, because they're just going to read about how thankful you are.
Oh, lovely. Danielle, thanks for taking our call today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That's Danielle Vaders. She's a health and wellness coach here in Corner Brook, and she's been doing gratitude journaling for a number of years now, since before the pandemic, or around the time the pandemic began, she said. You are listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1. Today we are talking about gratitude. So if you have some thoughts to share, you can text to us. The number to text is 709-327-8206. You can email us thesignal@cbc.ca. Dr. Spiegel, any thoughts about what you've heard from Danielle about the power that she sees in expressing gratitude and just starting by writing down maybe some of those very simple things that we might take for granted?
Absolutely. And I really loved the expression that Danielle shared, what we write, we invite. And I think that is such a great way of sort of considering that what we're focusing on does really matter to our experience. What I really also valued about what she shared is as you said, that it doesn't need to be always these really profound experiences. So, Faye speaking about seeing the Northern Lights last night, which I was so grateful to also see in my backyard. That's pretty profound. That's the first time that's ever happened in my life. And I could be equally grateful for being able to snuggle with my cat and pet him. I can be equally grateful for a delicious slice of pizza or a nice hot cup of tea or coffee. It doesn't really matter what it is that we're demonstrating our gratitude for. A lot of times I feel grateful that I am living in a country where, as a woman, I have the freedoms I do. So, really noticing, again, aspects of our experience, big or small, that we can have gratitude for. It has that impact on our brain regardless, big or small.
Becca Mills is our other guest today, a mindfulness-based stress reduction facilitator in Labrador City. Becca, I want to ask you, how do you use gratitude, or I guess if I can use the term prescribe, but recommend gratitude to the people that you work with in your mindfulness practice?
Absolutely. So for me, again, I'm not a big journaler, but for me, if I notice, for instance, agitation or frustration or pain, I can become aware of that experience through my mindfulness practice, simply noticing how things are, letting that be, and then saying to myself, okay, now we're on the search for something pleasant. We're on the search for that gratitude. And for instance, last night I could not sleep. I woke up about 5 times, and I would notice the agitation, whether I was uncomfortable or my leg wasn't feeling right or whatever part of my body was experiencing that discomfort. And then I would rewrite it in my mind. And I would say, these bed sheets, though, so comfy. Am I ever grateful that my partner switched the bed sheets tonight, And the roof over my head, of course, the fact that it's raining and snowing here in Labrador, but yet I'm comfortable and warm in bed. And as hard as it is to be awake and toss and turn, I can truly have the dual awareness of appreciating that physical sensation of a warm blanket, or the fact that my family is safe inside with me. It really is that dual awareness.
That's wonderful. Becca and Dr. Spiegel, we do have a caller on the line, so we're going to go right to the phone line. Mary is joining us now. Good afternoon, Mary.
Hi, how are you?
I think we're all doing just fine at the moment. How are you doing?
Just great. I'm calling in from Little Heartsease, and I'm just taken by your guests today and their stories, and certainly a lot of your callers. And I thought, gosh, my little doesn't really measure up theirs. But anyway, I thought I would share it anyway. 30 years ago, I had my first grandchild, or just before, actually. I started writing to her when she was born in a journal that at the end of my life will be hers. And I ended up with 6 grandchildren, and now I have a great-grandchild, and they each have their own journal that I have entered different occasions in their lives. It might have been a first tooth. It might have been a recollection of 9/11 on the day that I heard where this baby was when it happened, and things like that. So I have gotten so much peace and so much gratitude myself in writing in the journals for each of these children. And I only hope at the end of my life they get half as much appreciation from it. Anyway, that's my story.
Mary, I love that. So you were keeping a journal for each of your 6 grandchildren and now for a great-grandchild,
Yes.
and writing
Yeah.
positive things that you noted about their lives or your own life that you wanted to
Yes.
share with them and pass on. I love that.
Yeah, just in case, it was something was happening at that time and nobody took note of it. It's probably in the journal.
Mary, that is wonderful. I am so glad that you did call in today. I appreciate you doing that. Thanks so much.
Oh, thanks, Bernice.
That's Mary.
Bye-bye, and thank you again to all your guests. They've been wonderful and uplifting.
Wonderful to hear that, Mary. Thanks again. That is Mary calling in from Little Heartsease, and I feel like I have to go back to our guests. Dr. Spiegel, any thoughts on what you've just heard from Mary?
That is so beautiful. I was just sitting here kind of holding my heart and smiling and just wow. And so creative. And I think just really demonstrates that there's no right or wrong way to practice gratitude. Just, being surrounded, as I typically am, by people who are grieving, what a beautiful legacy to leave for the people who will definitely miss Mary. Beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful. We have Dan on the line. I'm realizing that we're going to quickly run out of time, so I want to get to the next caller. We have Dan on the line. Good afternoon to you, Dan, and welcome to The Signal.
Hi, Bernice, and welcome to your guests. So I'm out in the beautiful sun and looking up at the clouds and in the garden, and it's a gorgeous day. And my story is that I'm in my 70s, and so, of course, I've got some health issues, but they're minor. And I feel so grateful that I can jump and walk and run and laugh and fall on the ground. But beyond that, over the last 5 years, I've been working on food security as the founder of the Food Producers Forum. And my experience these 5 years has been beyond belief. And I attribute it to an attitude of trust and gratitude, because as we've developed our projects, and we're doing, building greenhouses, root cellars, helping people grow food all over the province, there have been many moments when we needed a particular person with a particular skill set, and they have come along every single time. And so I stepped back and I said, well, how does that work? It's a phenomenon that people call manifestation, which is that if you put it out there in a very clear form, you order it, in a sense, from the universe will deliver. And I've had that experience in other contexts, but nothing like these 5 years. And I can say, my God, Newfoundlanders are wonderful. But many of the people who have appeared are immigrants from all over the world, pitching in, helping, acting as staff. I cannot believe this. And yet, that's what I've learned. And so every day I try and practice that. I step out onto the deck, look at the ocean with my coffee, and I go, wow, I'm so glad to be here, to be standing up, and to be able to do what I'm doing. And I really believe that what your guests are saying is true, that essentially I'm a biologist, so I think we actually rewire ourselves biochemically, but there's also this mystery that surrounds us of the ways in which the world will respond if we approach it with the right attitude. And my work is a testament to that.
Dan, thanks so much for calling in and sharing that with us today.
Okay, bye.
Thanks so much. That's wonderful to hear from Dan. I want to go to the phone line. We have Paul on the line, and I know he's having a very busy day. He is a well-known Mi'kmaq musician in Newfoundland, Paul Pike, and he has his own story of a journey toward gratitude, and he joins us on the line now from Woody Point, where he's going to be performing later today. Paul Pike, good afternoon to you. Welcome to The Signal.
Thank you so much for having me on.
So, Paul, how grateful are you for where you are in your life right now?
Oh, tremendously grateful. I know that, they say that to really see gratitude or to feel gratitude is to see it. If anyone who's ever known anyone who's felt like they've lost everything, and to see them have a second chance at life, whether that was through health issues or other misfortunes, there's just another level of gratitude when you see that happening. And in Mi'kmaq culture, that when we're, another expression of gratitude is we would have a giveaway. Some say that when you love someone, you give in their name. Or when we harvest, we get a beautiful harvest of food from the land. We share it with everyone. But for myself, many people know that I lived in Alaska for 25 years, and I had a really hard time near the end of it, and relationship stuff, just so much that was going on in my life at the time, and I really felt like I was escaping. And coming home, and home, Newfoundland, Uktahamguk, we call it, represented safety. It represented sanity. It represented family and relationships that people are familiar for me. And I remember I literally felt like I was treading water. And when I got home, every night I would go out and I would just look up at the stars and I'd just be so grateful and be saying a prayer of gratitude, how grateful I'm here in this safe place where I know that, I'm loved and cared for, and that, I'm a part of this land. So, and it's been, since 2015, since I moved home, and I still feel the same way. I'm right now, such a beautiful time of year to fall. The colors are coming out. It's like the Creator is also showing us just how grateful we really do have it here, how awesome it is. So that's just a little bit about my own story.
Paul, how do you think finding that safe place and being able to find an opportunity to show gratitude, to speak gratitude into your own life, in a sense, how do you think that helped on your journey to wellness, to where you are today?
Well, I think everybody needs a sense of hope. And the gratitude that I get to express, it shows me that I've overcome some big obstacles in my life. And so it's not just being grateful, but living grateful, and being able to share that with my children or with my community is important.
Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I know you're going to be performing tonight, I think, as part of Sonic Harvest in Woody Point, right?
Yes, at 8 o'clock tonight.
Well, I know that people will be grateful to have the chance to hear you there, so thanks for taking the time.
Thank you so much for having me on.
That's Paul Pike, well-known Mi'kmaq musician here in Newfoundland. And Becca, I want to come to you in Labrador. Earlier you were talking, referencing, if you've got a bad elbow, well, it doesn't mean you have to be thankful for the bad elbow. But I know that recently you did this series of sessions focused on body gratitude. So what does that mean, body gratitude? What does that look like or sound like?
So in this specific practice of body gratitude, I do walk the participants through a scan of awareness through our body, starting at either the head or the toes, and simply acknowledging the toes as they are, for instance, and then saying to them, "Thank you for giving me balance," if that's available to you. Thank your feet for the steps you took that day. When you focus on the ankles, yes, noticing pain, noticing pleasantries, but also giving them thanks for the fact that they've been doing these hard jobs of maneuvering your feet and giving you the ability to walk if that's available to you. And truly, if we look at our bodies, knowing something that, like, I recall Albert Einstein had said this, that there are only two ways to live your life. And one is though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. And we can bring that to our bodies to share that gratitude, just how miraculous it is that we are the ones birthed on this planet and our bodies are functioning in the ways that they do, thanking the breath for coming in and coming out without any direction on our part. These things that happen seamlessly within our body. And another really great quote I love from the perspective of mindfulness, and I can't recall who said it right now, but that in terms of mindfulness, as long as you're breathing, there is more right with you than there is wrong with you. And being able to take that into your day, into your week, into whatever catastrophe might be happening, you can have this sense of groundedness and gratitude as well, just for the present moment, and of course the whole range of bodily functions that keep us here, that heart beating after each beat it takes.
Wonderful. Becca is joining us from Labrador City. Becca Wells is a mindfulness-based stress reduction facilitator. In our St. John's studio today, we have certified psychologist Dr. Jody Spiegel. And Dr. Spiegel, I feel like we've chatted with a few different people since we've had a chance to get your perspective on what you've been hearing. Any thoughts you want to share on any of the callers we've had?
Yeah, I just think that, again, demonstrating that there's a lot of different ways for us to engage in a gratitude practice. So, as Paul was saying, sometimes even looking up at the sky and noticing that we're a part of this beautiful universe and we're in a beautiful province. I think, I really appreciated what I'm forgetting his name. Was it Dan? The man who works with food security, and being able to kind of recognize that when we put out these sort of signals, that we do get things in return. And so, again, just noticing there's so many different ways to practice gratitude. And I also did want to share just a couple that I really enjoy, and that might be fun activities for even families to engage in. And one of those activities is a gratitude jar where everybody in the family writes down things, maybe one thing a day that they have gratitude for. And you can make it kind of more fun by putting it on colored paper and putting them all in a jar. And then at the end of the year, or on a day when you're feeling a bit more blue, taking some of those items out and reading them. Another activity that I really appreciated and found creative is a gratitude tree, where you put like a silhouette of a tree like on your wall and then have a bunch of leaves that are blank and write things that you feel grateful for on the leaves and then put them up on the tree. And so again, a nice activity that you can do either solo or as a family that then is a visual representation that you're going to see and notice of, as Becca said, all of the aspects of our experience that are right.
And Dr. Spiegel, what I'm hearing you say is there's no right or wrong way to practice gratitude. You can have a journal, or there are just a multitude of ways of going about practicing gratitude.
Yeah, I think even like the prompts for me were really helpful because it was something that occurred randomly throughout the day for me. And prompts can be things like, I'm grateful for 3 things I hear, or I'm grateful for 3 blue things, or it could be, as it was for me, notice the beauty in this moment.
I'm going to go to another caller we have on the line. Debbie Adams is an author from Newfoundland who's now living in Halifax, and she's had an incredible journey of her own, from being a retired member of the Canadian Forces to being a business owner and a mentor as well. Debbie, good afternoon to you. Welcome to The Signal.
Thank you, Bernice. I'm delighted to be here.
How did you get into practicing gratitude? How did that become a part of your life?
I will say that I encountered gratitude at like the worst time of my life. I had lost my career because of vision loss, lost my driver's license. I did what most people would do. I looked for jobs. I educated myself, but it just wasn't working out. So, it became evident that I was going to lose my house. And I was stuck in what's often referred to in the law of attraction world as stinking thinking. People definitely didn't want to be around me. I was I was really in a bad place. And a friend had introduced me to gratitude. I was a skeptic in the beginning, but I had nothing to lose, nowhere to go but up, and I decided to start practicing gratitude.
And what did that look like in the beginning?
Well, in the beginning, like I was listening to some of your previous guests, and it was many of those things that they had described, and it was difficult. I often equate it to trying to change your eating habits and give up sugar or something. Gratitude practice is not easy in the thick of a miserable life. But, you stick with it, and over the years, of course, the practice has enriched itself in terms of I didn't just do the practice. I started to study the practice and use it with people that I mentor. It's gotten deeper. Now it's not enough to just list off what you're grateful for. You need to get emotionally involved in that. And where you move from, Bernice, is this place where you maybe had a little bit of learned helplessness and thought that things were never going to get better, to what we refer to in positive psychology as learned optimism. And it's in that place, you can imagine being around people that are optimistic. You want to be around them. Things happen, opportunities happen, doors open up. And as opposed to being around people who are, stuck in that place where they're having a run of bad luck and they're down about it. You want to avoid those people. Opportunities don't happen so often. You get what you expect in life. I think somebody said that what we appreciate appreciates. I like to say what we focus upon expands. And it's just a matter of changing your focus.
Debbie, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Bernice. Have a good one.
You too. That's Debbie Adams. She's an author originally from Newfoundland and Labrador, now living in Halifax. One of her most recent books is called Law of Attraction for the Skeptic. And we've had an email, so I want to share that just before we wrap up the program today. Pat has emailed us to say, many people think that the practice of gratitude involves so many tasks or practices like meditation. I like to think of many of these techniques as adult playtime. Remember how great we all felt as children from playtime? We used our imaginations and created stories that we were characters in. We got exercise and expressed emotions and observed our world. We manifested laughter and joy. The simplest gratitude exercise I can think of is going for a walk and just being in the moment. Let the walk lead you. A good prescription for a new beginning in gratitude. Thanks very much, Pat, for emailing that to us. Dr. Spiegel, I wonder, we've got just a couple of minutes to wrap up, less than 2 minutes, actually. Are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share, or one way that someone might want to start with gratitude today?
So I guess my final thoughts is I'm very grateful that you invited me to be a participant today. I've absolutely loved hearing everybody's stories and the ways that they've engaged in practice and the ways that that's enhanced their lives. I think if you want to think of a simple practice to engage in today, it could be sending a text or an email to somebody who has had some positive impact on your life. It could be something like, thank you for looking after my dog while I was away on a trip. It could be, thank you for being such an important mentor who's really shaped how I view myself or my career or any aspect.
Wonderful. Becca, what about you? If there's one thing that you could suggest that people might want to do today to get started with gratitude?
I would certainly say to be grateful for today and do that repetitively, day after day.
That's wonderful. I want to thank both of you. I'm very grateful to both of you for sharing this last hour with me. It's been wonderful to have you on the signal today. Thank you very much, Dr. Spiegel in St. John's.
Thank you.
And thanks very much to Becca Wells in Labrador City. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Bernice. And very quickly, just in case anyone's looking for me, it's Becca Mills. You'll find that online anywhere. You're looking around Lab City for me.
My deepest apologies to you, Becca Mills in Labrador City. And that's all the time we have for The Signal today on CBC Radio 1.